George Washington is one of the most important leaders in world history. He was the first president of the United States, and he is often called the father of the nation. But Washington's story did not start with power. It began with a simple childhood, hard work, and a desire to do what was right. This is the story of George Washington, from an ordinary boy to a great leader whose choices shaped a nation. Early life. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732 in Virginia, which was then a British colony. He was the eldest son of Augustine and Mary Washington. His family owned land and farms, but they were not rich nobles or royalty. When George was only 11 years old, his father passed away. This left George to take on responsibilities at a very young age. Unlike many other leaders of his time, George never attended university. He learned by reading books, observing the world, and doing hard work. From a young age, George loved the outdoors. He enjoyed horses, hunting, and exploring forests. He became fascinated by maps and land surveys. By his late teens, George worked as a land surveyor, measuring land for settlers. This job taught him skills that would later help him: understanding terrain, planning movements for troops, organizing people effectively. Early military career. In his early 20s, George Washington joined the Virginia Militia, a local military group under British colonial control. He first gained experience in the French and Indian War. This war was fought between Britain and France over land in North America. Washington learned important lessons from this conflict: the value of careful planning, leading men through danger, staying calm under pressure. Although he made mistakes early on, these experiences prepared him for the challenges ahead. Life at Mount Vernon. After leaving the military, Washington returned to his home in Virginia. He married Martha Custis, a wealthy widow, and together they managed Mount Vernon, his plantation. Washington became a successful farmer and landowner. He grew crops, raised livestock, and managed workers. He enjoyed a quiet life and had no desire for political power. He loved his family, his home, and his country. However, the colonies were changing. Britain began increasing taxes, controlling trade, and ignoring the voices of the American people. Many colonists were angry and wanted independence. Washington believed in justice and freedom. Slowly, he became involved in political affairs. The American Revolution began. In 1775, tensions between the colonies and Britain escalated into war. The American Revolution had begun. George Washington was chosen as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. This was an enormous responsibility. The American Army was poorly trained, poorly equipped, and often hungry. In contrast, the British Army was powerful, well-trained, and experienced. Despite the challenges, Washington stayed committed. He believed in the cause of freedom and knew the stakes were high. Hardships of war. The war was long and full of hardships. Washington and his soldiers faced cold winters, hunger and sickness, low morale, defeats in battles. One of the most difficult periods was the winter at Valley Forge. Soldiers were cold, sick, and discouraged. But Washington stayed with them. He shared their struggles and inspired them through example. He never abandoned his men, and this loyalty earned their respect. Even during these dark times, Washington planned carefully. He knew patience and strategy were key. Slowly, the army became stronger, more disciplined, and determined. Victory and independence. In 1781, Washington's leadership led to a decisive victory. With help from French allies, the American army defeated the British at the Battle of Yorktown. This victory effectively ended the war. 2 years later, in 1783, Britain officially recognized the United States as a free nation. Washington's vision and leadership had succeeded. America was now independent. A historic decision. After the war, many people wanted Washington to become a king. He could have ruled with absolute power. But Washington refused. He believed power should belong to the people, not one individual. Instead, he returned to Mount Vernon. He chose humility over glory. This decision shocked the world. A man who could have taken power instead gave it back to the people. First President of the United States. In 1789, the new country needed a strong leader. George Washington was unanimously elected as the first President of the United States. There were no rules, no guidebooks, and no examples to follow. Washington helped build the government from scratch. He created fair policies, set traditions, and worked to keep the nation united. He served 2 terms as president, from 1789 to 1797. During this time, Washington warned Americans about the dangers of political division, too much power in one person's hands, and foreign influence interfering with domestic affairs. Stepping down peacefully. After 2 terms, Washington did something extraordinary. He stepped down peacefully. This action set a new standard for leaders around the world. It showed that leaders don't need to cling to power. It proved that democracy and freedom were stronger than monarchy. Final years and death. Washington spent his final years quietly at Mount Vernon. He focused on his farm, family, and personal interests. On December 14, 1799, George Washington passed away at the age of 67. His death saddened the nation. Even former enemies respected him. He was mourned by Americans and admired around the world. Legacy. George Washington is remembered as the leader who fought for independence, the first president who created traditions of democracy, and a man of integrity, courage, and humility. His life teaches us that true greatness comes from character, hard work, and dedication to others. Today, Washington appears on U.S. currency, on monuments like the Washington Monument, and on history books and schools worldwide. His story inspires leaders, students, and citizens even today.